Hello all my yarny friends, I'm Sara Sach and welcome back to my crochet channel. Now today's video, it's our Friday fun day, so I thought it would be super fun to make some mug rugs with a 4-leaf clover. Now you could do a 3-leaf shamrock if you want to. You could even use a button if you want to instead of embroidering it on, because there's plenty of room to put your coffee mug up on the checkered portion of it. Now, this is a checkered and a solid put together to make a fun mug rug. And of course, I've made mine all St. Patrick's Day, but you could do this in different colors and make this into a flower by adding more petals, and then it's all for spring. I may have to do some of those. Now it measures approximately 6 inches by 5 inches, so it's a great size. And they're just super fun to make. And you can use any shades that you want to of colors. I've got a lighter green here and a darker green here. This is a sparkle cotton and this is a regular cotton. I just got in my yarn stash, saw what cottons that I have. Now you can make it in acrylic as well. But remember, cotton is great for when you're going to do something, say a beer stein that might be sweating and you want that coaster to be absorbent. Okay, but if you're just going to have coffee cups or just glasses or whatever, acrylic is fine. They make great decorations. Just remember, acrylic doesn't absorb and cotton does. It's up to you which fiber you would prefer to use. You could use wool as well. Just whatever you have on hand in your yarn stash would make some great coasters. And just think, you could have a St. Patrick's Day party, give everybody their own coaster, and then they could take it home and remember what a great time they had at your party. So it makes a great party favor. Now you can find the complete pattern on my blog, and as always, I'll put that blog link down in the notes underneath this video. To make the Clover mug rug, you're going to need some yarn, of course, and we're using cotton medium weight number 4 yarns, and these are just some yarns that I had on hand. The green here and the white on this one are all peaches and cream. This is sugar and cream in a lighter green, and then I found that I had some of this left over. This is the I Love This Cotton, and it has a little bit of a sparkle in it, and I thought it would be super fun to do our demo with that. And it's really a super simple pattern. We start with our checkerboard, and then we go into our solid field, and then we come back in, of course, and embroidery on our 4-leaf clover. If you want to do just a 3-leaf shamrock, you can do that as well. All right, so it just takes a small amount, not even an ounce of each yarn, but to be on the safe side, you could say an ounce of each yarn. All right, now we're going to be stitching with our H-hook, which is a 5mm crochet hook. You need a needle for weaving in ends, and of course, stitching on our clover. And then of course, you're going to need a pair of scissors. We're going to be starting with our color 1, which is our green. We'll make our slip knot. And now we're going to loosely chain 16 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16 chains. We're going to place a single crochet in the second chain from the hook. That's the first one, so we'll go in the second one and stitch 1 single crochet, and then we'll stitch 1 in each of the next 2. So there's 1, and then when we do the next one, we'll bring our loop up, but we're going to bring in our color 2 and finish that one. And this is the technique where we're going to be changing colors and carrying our yarn in order to form that checkerboard look. All right, so now we're going to stitch 3 in our color 2. We're going to stitch over our green, one, 2, 3. Now we're going to switch back to our green and finish that third one. And this is very important for crisp squares. If we were to go ahead and do that loop, you'd have an extra loop of the one color over the other color. It would not be a nice crisp block. All right, so we're going to stitch 3 in the green color, or color 1. 1, 2, 3, switch to our white, or color 2, 1, 2, 3, switch back to our color 1, and we'll stitch the last 3. Before we do this though, I do want to drop the white and do the last 3 just with the green. We don't need to carry the white over at this point. All right, and I'm going to chain 1. Let's take a look at it. We have 3 stitches in green, 3 stitches in white, 3 in green, 3 in white, and 3 in green, and then we chained 1. I'm going to turn it over so you can see the back. And we stitched over the white here, and we stitched over the green here. And then we dropped our yarn to the back and did those last 3 without carrying our yarn. And this is the way that our first row, row 1, should look. Now for row 2, we're basically doing the same thing. So we're going to turn our work. Our chain 1 does not count as a stitch, so we're going to go right in our first stitch and stitch a double crochet in the next 3. And then we're going to bring back in our white, snug it all down. We're again going to stitch over our green and stitch 3 stitches in white. Green all the way there. There we go. 1, 2, 3. Change to our green. Finish that last or that third stitch. We'll do 3 in our green. We'll finish that last stitch with our next color. Whoops, get in there. There we go. 1, 2, 3. Bring our green back in. Now make sure you bring your color 1 to the back of your work. And you'll know where your back is because this is the tail where we brought it in. And that will help you remember where the back of your work is. And then we'll do those last 3 with just the green. And chain 1. Now something that happens is it gets twisty. So what I do is after each row I just take my ball of yarn and untwist it because it can be very frustrating for your yarns to get twisted when you're working on a project. All right, so this is the way the back looks. We brought our white to the back. Now we're going to turn it over and this is the front. So we have again 3 in green, 3 in white, 3 in green, 3 in white, and 3 in green. And we're going to do this for 1 more row. So again, we'll stitch a green single crochet in the first 3 stitches. And when we get to this third one, we'll start it and finish it with the next color. And repeat this across, stitching over our yarns. It's called carrying your yarns and stitching over it. It makes for a really nice appearance, and the key to not getting that color to show through as much is to keep that one you're stitching over a little bit snug. if it starts to droop, that's when we see it showing up. And also if you're stitching too loosely. That's why I always give that a little bit of a tug when I'm changing colors. So we stitched these last 3 white ones, but on this third row we are going to stitch over our white because we're going to be changing colors on the next row and starting with our white instead of our green. And so we're going to go ahead and stitch our green, and then we're going to chain 1 in our white. All right. So on the third row, we stitched over that color 2, so we would have it out here on the end, so we can start our next row in the opposite colors. So now we're going to be starting with our color 2. So we'll pull everything to the back. And we're going to be starting with our white because we're going to be forming a checkerboard. All right. So we'll go in that first stitch. We'll stitch over that green. And we'll stitch our first 3 single crochets in the white. We'll bring in our green to finish that last one. And then we'll just repeat what we've been doing, just in the opposite colors. And now we're going to drop that green. We want to make sure we bring it to the back of our work and stitch those last 3. Whoops. There we go. Single crochets and chain 1. And then we turn it to the front, and this is how it looks on the front. And so now what we're going to do is we're just going to repeat this for 2 more rows, just like we did down here, only we're using the opposite colors. So repeat this row, row 4, for 2 more rows. I have repeated 2 more times, but I wanted to remind you on that last one, make sure you finish with that color, and then on the last one, which is the 3rd row, we make sure we stitch over that color 1 so that when we get to the end of this row, we can bring in our color 2 or our color 1 because we were stitching with our color 2. That way we can repeat these 3 rows. All right? That's very important, or you'll end up with a tail of yarn going across in the back. All right, so this is how it should look at row 6. This is the back. This is the front. So now what we're going to do is we're going to repeat these first 3 rows. All right, so we'll stitch a double crochet in the first 3. Changing to our color 2 in the last part of our stitch, and repeat across. And I bet you're getting the hang of how to change colors now in the middle of rows in order to form our checkerboard pattern. All right, so we're going to repeat what we've just done down here for these 3 rows. Basically, we're repeating row 3 for 3 more rows up here. So I have completed that for 3 more rows, and you can see we've got a checkerboard pattern that looks so much fun. This is the front, This is the back. Here's where we brought in our white. That's how you know where your back is. But it looks pretty good, doesn't it, from the front and the back? All right, so we've got our white yarn pulled up. We're going to tie off or cut off our green because we're finished with it for now. And now we're going to start making the rows of just solid white. So we'll chain one and turn, and we're going to stitch one single crochet in each of those single crochets across. And remember, we have 15 stitches on every row for the body of our mug rug. We didn't add any and we didn't subtract any. All we did was change colors. And so for this row, you're going to have 15 single crochets in our color 2. Chain 1. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to continue to repeat row 10 for 10 more rows. And that will give us our solid section of white. So repeat row 10 for 10 more rows. We stitched that solid row of single crochet in our color 2, and then I did those 10 additional rows, so that gives us 20 rows. And again, every row has 15 stitches. So now what we're going to do is we're going to stitch a solid row all the way around all 4 sides of our mug rug before we put that little extra trim on. And so we're just going to chain one and turn. We're going to go back across the top, stitching one single crochet in each of our single crochets across. And when we get to that corner, we're going to place a single crochet, chain one, and single crochet in that corner. And we'll be placing that in each of the 4 corners. All right, so we're almost to this corner. So we're in that last stitch, and we're going to stitch single crochet, chain one, and single crochet in that corner. Now we're going to evenly stitch down the side, and that can be a little bit hard, and it makes it a little easier when you're just doing single crochet stitches. And so what you want to do is you want to try to go in the side of the stitch and not the holes. Okay? You go between those loops of the stitch. Working our way down, evenly stitching. There is not a set amount of stitches. You just want to eyeball it, look at it, make sure it lays pretty. They're not too close, they're not too far apart. All right, and so we're just going to evenly single crochet down. We get to this corner, we'll do single crochet, chain one, single crochet, then we'll single crochet across the bottom and back up here and join into this single crochet here where we started. So basically we're just evenly single crocheting all the way around our mug rug. I have evenly single crocheted all the way around my mug rug. We place single crochet, chain one, single crochet in the 4 corners. And now I'm just going to join to that first single crochet with a slip stitch. I'm going to cut that yarn, and I'm going to bring back in my green. Now you could use a different color. This would look really pretty in a rainbow yarn, or just a bright color, maybe orange. But I just stuck with the 2 colors on this project. All right, so I'm going to bring in that green. And now we're going to do just a fun little trim. All right, so we're going to slip stitch in that next stitch. We're going to chain one, snug that down, skip the next, and slip stitch in the next. Chain one, skip one, slip stitch in the next. Chain one, skip one, slip stitch in the next. And this gives it just a little bit of a kind of a movie, you know, it moves a little bit. It doesn't lay just flat. It just gives it a fun little edge. And I really like using this occasionally, and I thought it was good. We don't want it to be too fussy. We just want it to look pretty. And so we're just slip stitch, chain one, skip one, and slip stitch in the next. And we're not going to do anything different in the corners. We're just going to move around just like we've been doing on this trim stitch. Okay, and let me show you how that's going to look. Oh, I forgot to chain one. Nope, I did. I chained one. Skip one, slip stitch, chain one, skip one, slip stitch, and it just moves nicely around that corner. All right, and we'll just do this all the way around our mug rug. Chain one, skip one, slip stitch in the next, chain one, skip one, slip stitch in the next, and repeat, working all the way around. And then we'll join back over here where we started, and we'll tie off. And then of course the last thing we need to do is add our shamrock or clover, whichever you want to add. All right, so I have stitched that all the way around, slip stitch, chain one, skip one, all the way around. So I'm going to join back over here to that first stitch with a slip stitch, and we'll cut our yarn. We'll pull that loop underneath that next stitch so we get a nice finish. There we go. And then we can tie that off to the back. And yes, we have a few ends to weave in. I did a couple, but I need to grab my needle and weave these ends here in. There we go. But this is how your mug rug looks at this point. It's really cute as it is, but I want to add that shamrock or clover to my mug rug. Now, if you would prefer to maybe add a button or three, you could, because there's plenty of room down here for a mug to sit. All right, but I just like the idea of embroidering a clover or shamrock on. All right, so I've got my yarn threaded onto my needle, and we're going to go right up into the center. Make sure you center it. And we're going to do what's called a lazy daisy stitch. Whoops. That wasn't good, was it? Okay, we'll try that again. A lazy daisy stitch. All right, so I'm going to hold this back here because I don't want that to come through. I am going to do the 4-leaf clover. So I'm going to bring that up. I'm going to go back down, and I'm going to come up over here. And the key to this is you don't want to pull this too tight or you end up with two just lines there. You want to make sure you can see the shape and then go back down. And if you've ever done any embroidering, this is just the basic lazy daisy stitch that we do when we do an embroidery. Okay? Turn this way. And you want to try to get in a stitch and not a hole. And then don't go back in the same hole you went in or came up in. Go in down a little bit farther. That's going to hold that out better and help it keep its shape. All right. So now I'm going to do the other two sides. And these don't have to be perfect. I mean, if you want to measure them out and make them perfect, you can. It's up to you. You know me, I like to eyeball things because I'm a little bit artsy opposed to perfection. But you can measure them. Make sure they're all the same. Alrighty, so there's 3, and if you want to just make it a clover, you could just make the tail. But I want to make it, or I should say shamrock, but I want to make it a 4-leaf clover. There we go. I'm going to pull that a little bit better. Alrighty. And so I'm going to make the 4th one. And I'm going all back into that same spot in the center. All right, so there's my 4 petals on my 4-leaf clover. And again, leave them a little bit loose so that you can open them up a little bit. Make sure don't go back in the same spot. All right, and then we need to make the stem. And so I like to kind of come to the side. I don't want it to be perfect. There we go. And I'm almost out of yarn, but I'm going to go right down in the center. And that's the stem for our 4-leaf clover. All right, now at this point, I'm going to use my crochet hook and go under here. There we go. And then I'm just going to tie this into a knot. And the reason I'm going to go ahead and do that is because I'm not going to be putting my cup on this portion of it. And if we were to weave this in, it would be really difficult to keep from seeing those stitches. All right. And if you're worried about that coming undone, you can always put a little dot of some of that E6000 or Gorilla Glue on there. All right. So there's my 4-leaf clover in the lighter green one. And here it is in the darker green. And see, this one looks almost more like a palm tree, doesn't it? The way I've got that sitting there. So either way works just fine. There's plenty of room for your coffee mug on there. And again, if you want to use a button, you can. There's lots of different St. Patrick's Day buttons out there. And I picked these ones up in a package from my local Hobby Lobby. So that's our Clover mug rug, 100% cotton with an embroidered clover or shamrock. And remember, 4-leaf clover, shamrock has 3 leaves. Okay? See you next time.